No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
May I be among the first to wish you a good afternoon. Canadian author Alexander L. Fraser told his readers, "Fear not November's challenge bold. We've books and friends, and hearths that never can grow cold. These make amends." In a week of frost and ice, you are welcome to another friendly and bookish hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. Last year, the government banned the prescription of drugs to children questioning their gender identity. But this year, we learn of a trial of puberty blockers on youngsters under 16. Is that ethical? I'll ask my panel. Stefan Kyriazis has spent this chilly week huddled in London's theatres. He will join me to share his heartwarming and icy reviews of All My Sons and End. Scandal in Westminster may date back further than you think. In his book, The Man Who Sold Honour, Stephen Bates will tell us about Maundy Gregory. And on the subject of Westminster, what was going on there 6,000 years ago? Archaeological excavations have revealed evidence of human activity. First, your latest news headlines from Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories at midday. A senior Conservative minister says the Chancellor's position has become untenable amid chaotic announcements ahead of the budget next week. Last week, Rachel Reeves scrapped plans to raise income tax rates, but she's widely expected to raise other taxes in an effort to bridge a multi-billion-pound gap in her spending plans. Writing in the Daily Mirror, she's pledged to grip the cost of living crisis, but Mel Stride told GB News the British public is running out of patience.
I think if we've reached the point where this government in opposition made a lot of very clear commitments, including in their manifesto, then promptly junked a lot of them and did different things in office, and has now arrived at a point where once again we are led to believe they will be putting up taxes on hard-working people, which is something that they've said they wouldn't do, then yeah, I think it's time for her to step aside, I'm afraid.
Rail fares in England will be frozen next year for the first time in 3 decades as part of government plans to move rail services back into public ownership. Ministers say the move will save millions of travellers hundreds of pounds off season tickets, peak and off-peak returns between major cities. Hundreds of people have turned out in Crowborough to protest government plans to house 600 migrants in former military barracks. GBNews' reporter Isabel Fekulak joins us now. Isabel, what's the feeling there like?
Well, there's a lot of anger and upset within the community here. I'm here at Chapel Green, which is the end point of that 40-minute march we set on this morning at 10 o'clock. And behind me are the remaining few protesters. But earlier today, we saw what we think is over 1,000 protesters. There were 2 different groups leaving from different locations, and they met in the middle of the town for a huge, powerful protest where they were chanting "Crowborough says no." And as I said, a lot of anger and upset in the community. I spoke to a few residents, and here's what they had to say.
The concern is we don't know who they are. We don't know where they're from, what their background is, and that poses, as I say, a security risk to people in the area.
The safety of the village, the safety of the women, the children, our elderly. I think the majority of us think if they were contained, they need to go somewhere, but they've got freedom to wander.
Angry. We don't want this on our doorstep. I'm not doing it for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I don't want to have them in fear that they can't walk down the street in case they get attacked.
Strong feelings and concerns from the community here, and those feelings are lasting, with another protest set to happen next Sunday.
Isabel, thank you for that update. Now, a gold pocket watch recovered from a passenger who drowned during the sinking of the Titanic has been sold for a record £1.8 million at auction. It's the highest amount ever paid for Titanic memorabilia. The 18-carat gold engraved watch belonged to the American businessman Isidor Straus, who died alongside his wife Ida. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Bethany Elsey. The CAST report of April 2024 reported that children have been let down by remarkably weak evidence on medical interventions in gender care, and the government promptly imposed an indefinite ban on prescriptions of puberty blockers for under 18s. But now King's College London has announced a trial involving 220 children under the age of 16, a move that's been welcomed by Dr. Cass on the grounds that it will improve evidence. Is this a desirable and necessary way to fill a void in our knowledge? And even if it were, can it be ethical to use children in medical experiments? My panel has returned: political consultant and former Labour candidate Kevin Craig and writer and broadcaster Candice Holdsworth. Candice, can it be ethical to use children in a medical trial?
No, I don't think so. I'm extremely sceptical of paediatric gender medicine. I don't believe that children should be encouraged to change their sex. I think that the children who present to these clinics with gender dysphoria have a host of other problems that are not properly addressed, because I think gender medicine is extremely ideological. And what we know from the GID service is that children are not questioned or in any way encouraged to think through why they might want to transition. Instead, they are sort of put on a pathway to transition, because I think there is so much social pressure to just accept that. And I don't think it should be going on at all. I think children are far too young to be making these types of big changes to their bodies, even if we can, say, improve puberty blockers in some way, that maybe they don't affect your bone density or whatever. I still think that children should not be encouraged to do something that could have damage far in the long term, and they can't think that way because they're too young.
Kevin Cray, what's been your reaction to this? I mean, I think, obviously the government went along with the Cass report a year ago and banned the prescription of puberty blockers to people under 18. Of course, Dr. Cass did also say that there was deficiency in the evidence. But it's pretty unusual, isn't it, to seek new evidence by experimenting on children? I mean, I think of using, laboratory mice or fruit flies or something, but children.
Yeah. So you're right. And Secretary of State Wes Streeting was very vociferous in his welcoming of the Cass report. The thing I notice here is that Professor Cass is supportive of more medical trials. And I note that King's College London have procedures in place where not just the young people, but their parents or carers have to give approval. And it seems to be aimed at, under very tight controls, improving our scientific understanding of the experiences of young people going through these issues. All that being said, so I'm okay, to answer your question, is it ethical? I believe it's being undertaken in an ethical manner. I do also totally understand the concerns you've heard articulated there, because it's a very controversial area, but it's very, very tightly controlled, this.
I would like to just look at a paragraph from the King's College press release announcing this trial. Perhaps we can bring that up on the screen, can we? I've got it written here anyway. The approach helps researchers to understand how treatment works by comparing what happens in both groups, because the children are going to be divided into two groups. One will be given a placebo and the other lot will be given real drugs. It can show whether starting the treatment earlier is more helpful for young people or whether delaying the treatment might lead to fewer unwanted side effects. That rather sounded to me as though the issue had been prejudged. In other words, is there not a kind of assumption there that the drugs are going to be good for you, and what we're finding out is whether giving them earlier or later is good for you? Well,
Having heard that paragraph recited by you, yes, I mean, that's slightly concerning.
Right, right. Candice, do you think the government has understood that this is underway? I mean, it does on the face of it seem to go clearly against the government's ban. In fact, the government's ban was up to 18. These children are all under 16. So to understand how this works, they're divided into two groups, as I say. But it rather sounds as though one lot are going to get the drugs now and one lot are going to get them in a year's time. But even say it's a control group where one lot don't get the drugs at all and the other do, we're talking about 110 children who are going to be given these drugs. And the whole point of the trial is we don't know what the effect is, otherwise there wouldn't be a trial. We don't know.
Exactly.
So we're giving drugs to children and we don't know what's going to happen.
I know, but this is the thing, and you said it just now, there is a sort of a policy of affirmation, that it is good for children to have puberty blockers, and you were really countercultural to question whether or not it is even good to give them that. I think there's so much pressure on medical professionals to just affirm kids through this process and not push back in any way, not be sceptical in any way. And as far as we know, it does have long-term effects on fertility, for instance. And I don't mean to be crude, but on, things like sexual pleasure. And people have only understood that when they're adults and they have difficulty forming relationships. And you can't think about things like that when you're 13 or 14 and you're maybe in mental turmoil and you've gone online and you think that this is the solution to all your problems. And that's the problem. These things, these sort of background factors that are going on in kids' lives are not being explored properly when they go for these treatments.
Kevin, we had the, I think, rather helpful Supreme Court judgment which said that people's sex was the sex with which they were born with, right, and we're now working that through the system. Can kids understand that these drugs may make them feel less like a girl or less like a boy? They may stop them developing all the features of a woman's body or all the features of a man's body, but they're not going to make them into a woman or a man.
Well, I would hope that they understand that, but I go back, and again, it's a very powerful debate, but I go back to the fact that in these trials, it's the young people and their parents and carers who've given consent for this. And we do in other areas of medicine, trial medicines on people below the age of 16. And I think the Supreme Court ruling was long overdue clarification about what the definition of a woman is.
We trial medicines on people, including young people, who are sick.
Yeah.
I would be so bold to say these people are not sick.
Well, my observation is that there are lots of these young people whose mental health, and I'm not passing judgment on it one way or the other, but there are lots of young people who are going through a lot of difficulties with regards to their gender and their idea of it, and their mental health then suffers. And this seems to be an attempt to try and help make that better. And you might say it's a very charitable interpretation of the situation, but these trials are taking place and they are controversial, but they are what Cass recommended for more evidence to try and make the situation better, and with the young person and parent and carer consent. And that's where I'm at. I totally recognise, you know, reputable journalists and authors who cite very articulate concerns on the topic.
I mean, I would say a child has rights even beyond the consent of the parent. I mean, let's be rather practical about this, Kevin. Supposing these children suffer damage in one way or another, who is liable for that damage? Is the parent liable? Is King's College liable? Is the NHS liable? Is the taxpayer liable? I mean,
well, medical. Yeah, the answer is, as I recall, that medical trials have very hefty consent forms, and liability is signed away by all those involved in undertaking the process. But I do, Michael, I do agree, this is a very, very difficult area. But I go back to the fact that there are, which I think we all would agree on, there do seem to be a small number of people who do struggle, young people who are struggling with their gender in a way that affects their mental health. I mean, that is a fact.
But Kevin, I mean, if that was so, why has it not always been so? I mean, it's only very, very recently that anybody has thought it sensible to give drugs to children because they're feeling uncomfortable about their gender.
Yeah.
It's a very recent thing. I mean, I don't want to go back over the sort of Michael Ellis line, but, you know, for hundreds of years, we've not given risky drugs to children.
Agreed, and some would say it's a development of a modern soft society, and, you know, 100, 200 years ago, people were too busy trying to battle to survive for such things. I hear that. But society does, as you said earlier, it changes over time.
But also there's the phenomenon which has been observed of rapid onset gender dysphoria, and a lot of that is to do with the internet and social pressure at school. I mean, it's one of these things. You'll often find entire friendship groups transitioning. So that makes you think that it has something to do with the culture and with society in the particular moment that we are in. It used to be that it was a very, very small number of children, mostly boys, who wanted to change their gender. That's who medical professionals dealt with for decades. It was a real thing. But then, I think it was in the last 10 to 15 years, they suddenly saw a huge uptick in girls. And that wasn't properly understood, and no one did any research into why. And that was why, for instance, you know, Hillary Cass pushed back on their data gathering, for instance. Why is there suddenly more girls presenting with gender dysphoria? And that's a question, and that question, I think, is answered by rapid onset gender dysphoria phenomenon, the phenomenon of that a lot of it is a social contagion.
I like this second discussion to address ethical issues. I mean, tell me in the broadest sense, do you, Candice, think that it's ethical that a parent can give consent for a child being treated with drugs, which are not necessary, I pick my words carefully, certainly not necessary for the physical health of that child? I mean, what are the rights of the child versus the rights of the parent here?
I totally agree with you, and I think it's something I thought about a lot. I think that's the right distinction to make, because if your child had cancer, if your 10-year-old child had cancer, you might enter them into an experimental medical trial, and most people would think that that was okay, that was necessary. But I think with this type of medicine, sometimes, actually, the parents can be the problem. And this is what the GID Centre, the medical professionals at the GID Centre said. Sometimes you'll have parents who are very homophobic, and they've got a gay child, and they don't want a gay child, so they'll encourage them to transition. And this is something that isn't spoken about very often, but it does happen.
Another ethical question, is this a proper use of the National Health Service? National Health Service was set up to, you know, cure people who are sick and, over time, to prevent people from becoming sick. Is this a proper use of the National Health Service?
Well, I think if it's aimed at helping the mental health of some young people, then I think ethically you can say that it is. And if it's very scientifically controlled with good procedures, I think you can say it's ethical. But I think it's a tiny, tiny thing now. Because of the Cass report, it was all brought back and levels of funding and acceptance of this were reduced. She supports medical trials to try and improve evidence and understanding around a very controversial, difficult area. And mental health costs our country a fortune, as well as physical health.
Kevin puts great store by the controls that are going to be on this. Obviously, panels of people are considering the ethics of it and so on. But I wonder whether we're now at a stage where people just don't trust that. They hear that it's all controlled, they hear that it's all being properly done. But on the other hand, the CAS report showed that so many children had been treated without any proper safeguards at all. Why should one trust what's going on now?
Exactly. I think people have sort of lost faith in gender medicine, and I think that people see it as a highly politicised form of medicine. It's not led by the evidence. Most of the people, particularly the members of WPATH, so that's the body that sort of sets the standards for gender medicine all over the world. They inform medical care for people experiencing gender dysphoria in lots of different countries. That has been investigated, and it's highly political. It's not like this oncology, for instance, which is very evidence-led. A lot of these people have an idea that gender is a social construct, that it's something that can be shifted around. They don't believe in binary biological sex. So it is a controversial area of medicine that I think hasn't been scrutinised well enough, and I don't think is like other areas of medicine, which follows the scientific method closely.
Thank you, panel. Not an easy subject for you today, so I'm grateful for your efforts. Kevin Craig and Candice Holsworth. A Department of Health and Social Care spokesman said young people with gender incongruence need access to high-quality, safe and effective care. We're following the CAS review, which was clear that the evidence on care for these children is lacking, and proposed this research to help provide it. Medical care must always be based on solid evidence, and children's safety must come first. Very good. Coming up, Stefan Kyriazis has spent this chilly week warming himself in the limelight of London theatres. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
I can't believe it's taken them so long to get angry about it. This cross has been there since a football tournament 9 years ago, isn't it?
Well, what is the point of getting angry about it? At the end of the day, we're here to celebrate being an English pub, supporting English teams, football, cricket, the Ashes is due next week, rugby, and this has been up since 2016, the Euros. Up for 9 years, less 2 years when we had the pandemic. So it's been up for 9 years, 7 years total.
So you put it in 2016 during the Euros to support the England team, the Three Lions. Fat lot of good that did us, but there we go. We are England. It would take more than a cross on a pub to make a blind bit of difference on that front. I digress. The point is, it's been up for 9 years. No one's had a problem with it, but suddenly, Jerry, they do have a problem with it, and that's because, if I'm correct in assuming, they're dragging you in with the Raise the Colours initiative that's happened recently, but it's nothing to do with that.
No, this is totally nothing to do with it at all. It's based on the fact that it's got a bit political now. Unfortunately for me, I'm also a Wiltshire councillor for Puberty. I've represented them since 1995, and now my own planning committee have decided that I'm going to have we'll have to call it retrospective permission.
Are they going to make you whitewash over your magnificent St George's Cross?
I've actually no intention of doing that, I'm afraid. This is a bit more of a political thing now. I think we've no longer got control of Wiltshire. The Dems have. They're a little bit naive when it comes to planning issues and that. A lot of retrospectives going on. This will stay. I've applied for retrospective permission. My architect's Fowlers of Pusey. We will wait and see what the planning committee come up with then.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too.
From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. There's only a few weeks left until Christmas and time is running out for you to enjoy it all on us. There's £40,000 in tax-free cash, £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket and a fantastically festive GB News goodie bag. And the best news, you'll get it all in time for the big day, Christmas. So make sure you don't miss out. Here are the details that you need.
There's just 32 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis has sought refuge from the wintry blasts of the week behind the cosy doors of London's theatres. Was his heart warmed by what he saw there, or are we in for another icy review? Stefan is here with Rafa. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
What did you see and what was your reaction?
I saw lots of things, certainly nothing cosy. And the ice of my heart has been reserved for one of the shows, but I'm in a good mood, Michael.
Right.
And first up, we've got All My Sons. This is Arthur Miller, directed by Ivo van Hove, Belgian avant-garde director. So a lot of this, it's like warning bells to me. There's been a lot of prestige productions in London with big names that have just not worked for me or just been kind of a trudge. This one is 2 hours and 10, no interval.
Wow.
Yep. However, I loved every second, and we were talking before about an opera that you saw, and this was the same. I have rarely been in an audience where they're so gripped, so silent, so hanging on everything. And it opens with this tremendous storm on stage, this towering tree, fans going, noise, thunderous noise, and Marie-Jean Baptiste in her nightgown, clinging to this tree, billowing behind her. Blackout, come back up, the tree's fallen down, and this tree was planted in memory of their missing son, Larry, who was a World War II pilot. Her husband is Joe. He owns an arms production factory for the military, did very, very well, very wealthy, but was imprisoned very briefly for faulty parts that resulted in the deaths of 21 pilots. His business partner, went to prison, protesting to the end that Joe had authorised it. Joe denied it, so he got off scot-free, and he is now man about town. And this is a London stage performance by Bryan Cranston, big American star who is phenomenal, charismatic, present, and he is so charming with the neighbourhood kids, so affectionate with his family, so smooth that you start feeling a little bit unsure. But his son is Chris, and this is Papa Essiedu, who is one of my absolute favourites. Electrifying performer. By the end, he was in real tears. And this is the story of a man discovering that the world is not what he thought, not what he wanted, and watching his father transform in front of his eyes. He's in love with his dead brother's girlfriend, who comes for the weekend, and then everything unravels. Superbly staged, paced, the tone, the delivery by everyone is fantastic on stage, but these three central performances particularly stunning. Some of the best theatre I've seen.
How absolutely marvellous. When did Arthur Miller write that?
This one was written, I think, in 47, I want to say, or it's set in 1947.
It's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
that art can be so fresh after so many decades.
Yep.
What a fantastic accolade to that.
That's on at the Wyndhams.
It's on at the Wyndhams.
Extended already till March, so it's doing really well.
Since you mentioned the opera that I've been to see, that was at the English National Opera. It's called Dead Man Walking. It's about a nun who is visiting a man on death row, and she desperately wants him to confess his sin, confess his crime, seek redemption and forgiveness and save his soul. And we were absolutely gripped. Unfortunately, it's finished its run, but should you ever have a chance to see Dead Man Walking, I recommend that. So that was your warm-hearted review. Now, what did not please you as much?
So
a thing called End, you said.
That was a 5-star rave. Then we've got End. This is Clive Owen, Saskia Reeves.
What a fantastic cast.
Completely. And just the two of them on stage in front of us. Again, no interval. This one is 100 minutes without interval. And this is David Eldridge's third play in a series. And it was literally beginning, middle, end. 3 different couples at different stages of relationships. And this time, we learn immediately that Alfie, the male character, is suffering from cancer and there's not long left. And Clive Owen, I have to say, both actors for me, physically, facially, presence, fantastic. I believed every bit of pain, agony, fury, desire, fear, everything. They unpick some stuff from their relationship, but it's mainly about him confronting how he wants to go and her wanting something different. I wanted to love it so much. I don't think it's a particularly fantastic prose, and everyone has said the first play was amazing. The second one was pretty good. I feel the third is the worst by far. Their kids made good from outside London. Was a DJ, which is a stretch for me for Clive Owen, and she's an author, but it's a lot of Babe, Michael Babe. They all say Babe for everything, and he's Bosch and Babe, and let's have a kip. And I'm
kind of relieved, though, that the performances were both terrific, because they are absolutely world-class.
Physical performances. Yeah. I did not believe their voices.
Right.
I did not believe their delivery. So every time when they weren't speaking, it was agonising, beautiful. When they were, I didn't believe it for a second. And I have to say, I kind of nodded off here and there. Sorry. It happens. So this, for me, is an absolute pass. It was a 2-star, and I was really disappointed. Sorry.
Now, you just wanted... We've got a couple of minutes, maybe a tiny bit less. You wanted to make a nudge or two at a couple of other things.
Yeah, so outside London, I went up to Manchester for a matinee at the gigantic, beautiful Palace Theatre for Miss Saigon. And this is prostitution, war crimes, propaganda, human rights abuses, all these sorts of things in a musical with the evacuation of Saigon, which is 50 years ago this year. And this was packed theatre, family next to me, old boy next to me. We had a chat at the interval. At the end, he was like, I do hope you're going to give this a lovely review. It was wonderful. And it was.
Updated production.
Cameron McIntosh.
On tour.
Yeah, it's on tour, and it's touring all the way through till August next year. Fantastic music, fantastic performances, some of the best staging, incredible nighttime stormy boat trip of refugees across to Thailand. Spectacular, and I cried at the evacuation of Saigon, the desperation of the people left behind.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Can't recommend this enough. On tour.
Wonderful, with that helicopter chugging above.
Everything done.
And what was your last tiny reference
Final one,
to something?
teeny tiny, and this is to encourage people for small theatre. It's called Ride the Cyclone. It's on at the Southwark Playhouse. It's about the size of this studio here. It's about 5 kids in a town called Uranium up in North Canada that was a mining town, and it's like, come for the half-life, stay for the whole life. 5 kids from a terrible choir killed in a Ferris wheel freak accident with a headless girl that no one knows who she is. And in the afterlife, they're told one of them can survive and be brought back to life, but they pick who. So they each sing a Pick Me song. One is a little bit like cabaret, one's a bit like Rocky Horror. Young kids, young performers, exciting, raw, a little bit ramshackle.
Marvellous.
Mad, bonkers show. And I loved it. So go and see little shows, and they're not a lot of money.
Title again?
That one's called Ride the Cyclone.
Ride the Cyclone. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you.
As ever, let us know what you think. If you've seen any of these productions, send in your comments to gbnews.com/yoursay. Well, there's a brand new way to take part in the conversation by becoming a friend of GB News for nothing. Let's take a look.
Join the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on Your Say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
I'll be back after the news headlines. Cash for titles as a Westminster scandal with a long pedigree. We'll hear the sordid tale of Maundy Gregory. Headlines first with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. Your top stories at 12:30. The Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says Rachel Reeves's position has become untenable as she's expected to raise taxes in the budget next week. Rail fares in England will be frozen next year for the first time in 3 decades as part of government plans to move rail services back into public ownership. Delegations from Ukraine, the US and the UK are gathering in Geneva today to discuss Donald Trump's peace plan to end the war with Russia. And the Prime Minister says anyone with information about sex offender Jeffrey Epstein should come forward. It's after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor failed to appear in front of US Congress. You're up to date. More for you at 1 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a mixed picture out there. We have an area of low pressure bringing rain and showers in the north, but it is actually going to be turning much brighter in the south and east. So an area of low pressure situated to the northwest of the UK, a real squeeze in the isobars across Northern Ireland indicating some strong winds here. But otherwise across Scotland, especially north of the central belt, that's where we're going to see outbreaks of rain and hill snow. Further rain across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, but to the south of that across Wales, southwest England, it's sunny spells, it's showers, but a much drier end to the weekend across the southeast. Temperatures reaching up to 10 or 11 degrees here, but feeling chilly underneath the cloud and the rain across the north. So as we head through the rest of this evening, again, we have this slow-moving weather front across Scotland, so bringing further spells of rain across central parts. Across Northern Ireland, again, the rain will start shifting its way further south and eastwards, but still holding on to some strong winds here. Further showers across Wales, across the southwest of England, but a drier end to the night across the south and east. So as we head through this evening, actually we'll see further cloud and rain sink its way southwards as the area of low pressure skirts across the country. So turning wet and windy across Wales and the southwest of England. Otherwise, across Scotland, Northern Ireland, we'll lose some of those showers, but it's still going to be chilly. We'll see those northerly winds move in once again, but it is generally going to stay frost-free as we start Monday morning. So some strong winds across the south and west with blustery showers here, turning drier into the afternoon, especially across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Focus for the showers on Monday are going to be running across eastern coast. Otherwise, a lot of cloud around, but in the sunshine, actually Northern Ireland not doing too bad, holding up at 9 degrees.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Scandal in Westminster has a contemporary ring to it, but it's not new. A book that's out now chronicles the life and work of Maundy Gregory, an actor, embezzler, conman, spy, possibly murderer, who marketed peerages and baubles in the years after World War I. The man who sold honours lifts the lid on the murky workings of interwar Westminster, and the only person ever to be successfully prosecuted under the Sale of Honours Act 1925. Joining me now is author Stephen Bates. Hello, Stephen. So Maundy Gregory was selling honours, but who was benefiting from the money that was being raised in that way?
Well, he was partly because he was earning quite a substantial amount of commission on it. But he was raising money primarily for Lloyd George's political fund. The Prime Minister was looking to the future, having split the Liberal Party and knowing that the Conservatives were likely to split from the coalition after the war. And he needed money to fight future election campaigns. So it was primarily for him. Although it has to be said that Maundy Gregory was actually an equal opportunities type, and he would raise money for the Tories as well, if the opportunity arose.
I believe he went on selling honours even when he didn't have honours to sell. In other words, it then became embezzlement.
Well, pretty well, yes. He eventually came unstuck because of that. After the Act was passed in 1925, exactly 100 years ago, and that particular avenue was closed off to him, he started selling papal knighthoods and honours for the crowned heads and ex-crowned heads of Europe. But eventually he came unstuck when someone who he approached to buy an honour not only didn't need one, didn't want one, but went to the police about it. And that's when his little empire started to unravel.
I'm not in the House of Lords myself, so I'm interested to know, what was a peerage going for in the 1920s?
You'd have to pay about £50,000, which in today's money would be certainly several million.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. Now, he was the only person who was to be convicted under the Sale of Honours Act. He didn't get much of a sentence, did he? What was he sentenced to?
He was actually sentenced to 7 weeks in Wormwood Scrubs, and I think he had a £50 fine, which, considering he'd been making £30,000 a year in commission, was not great, but it was done in return for keeping his mouth shut about some of the honours he'd been selling.
Yes, I was going to say, it almost goes without saying, doesn't it, that neither the person who was selling the honours, let's say Lloyd George, nor the people who were buying them were prosecuted. Only the middleman was prosecuted.
Well, that's true, yes. The act under which he was prosecuted actually had a fatal flaw in it, because it not only punished the person selling the honour, but also the person receiving the honour. So there was absolutely no incentive for someone who'd bought a knighthood, say, to actually squeal on the tout who sent it to them.
What else was this chap up to? I mean, there was a rumour, this has come up in previous books about him, that he was involved in a murder. What did you make of that, Stephen?
I think it's unproven, but possible. He lived for a long time with a lady called Edith Ross, who was the estranged wife of a band leader. And Maundy Gregory got into deep waters because a chap he'd sold a baronetcy to died before the honour could be awarded. And so his relatives asked for the money back, and Maundy had spent it. He didn't have it. But it transpired that Edith Ross did have it in her bank account, and he tried to persuade her to hand it over to him. She refused to do that. Funnily enough, died fairly shortly thereafter. So although it was never proved, he was never brought to trial. He was in exile by the time her body was exhumed, and nothing could be proved about it. It seems fairly likely that the lure of the money was too much for him to resist.
The body had by then rotted. It had been buried in a wet grave, and it was impossible to tell whether she'd been poisoned or not. Is that right?
That's right, yes. He swiftly had her buried a foot deep in Bisham churchyard, which is right up against the River Thames, and it floods every winter, more or less. He put her in a lead-lined coffin, and it was a shallow grave, as I say, and by the time the body was exhumed the following spring, it was pretty well dissolved, and with the techniques they had in those days, they couldn't tell whether she'd been poisoned or what had happened to her at all.
Very briefly, there have been books about Mordred Gregory before. Why was it necessary to write a new one?
I think it's quite a long time since books have been published about him, and I thought there were new avenues to explore about his political activities as well as his rather scandalous embezzlements and swindles.
It's a story which almost beggars belief. It's called The Man Who Sold Honours, and it's by Stephen Bates, and a very good read. Thank you very much for coming on, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Coming up, what was going on in Westminster 6,000 years ago? Archaeological excavations give us the answer. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The unsettled weather continues across the central Mediterranean. Heavy rain and thunderstorms expected here. Some areas could even see a month's worth of rainfall in just a few days. Mostly dry and settled across Madeira, but many areas of northern Europe are going to see a very unsettled day on Monday. The poorest of conditions likely across Italy and around the Adriatic coastline. Some heavy showers and thunderstorms here. Still a mix of sunshine and showers into next week, with the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Get ready for this one, because a children's book has claimed that the ancient inhabitants of Scotland were black. Yes, the illustrated book, which aims to make Scottish history accessible to children as young as 4, well, it claimed that Scotland has always been, quote, multicultural and diverse. Let's now speak with the comedian and the GB News contributor, Leo Kearse. Leo, welcome to the show.
This just shows, you can't trust education anymore. You can't trust books anymore. The only history books you can trust are ones that were written before about 20 years ago. And the only historians you can trust are the ones who've been accused of bigotry, because anyone else might be lying so they don't get accused of bigotry. They might be lying to fit in with the current progressive dogma. And when I say progressive, it's obviously not actually progressive. It's progressive in the same terms that a doctor would tell you a disease is progressing. It's not actually progressing in the sense of being good for society. This is flat earth level insanity. This is completely scientifically inaccurate. It's not even like London. I mean, I know in medieval settings, Robin Hood or whatever, they insert black characters in. There were some black people in London because it was a major trade route. The Romans brought some black people or people from North Africa or whatever. But Scotland, I mean, none of them went up to Scotland. They were probably cold enough in Kent. Never mind exposing them to Aberdeen. Yeah, I mean, I'm about as black as a Scotsman you'd get. There's it's obviously completely fraudulent.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Mike Portillo. Renovations are to be conducted at the Palace of Westminster. As part of the process, archaeological excavations have already found ancient 6,000-year-old artefacts, revealing evidence of human activity on the site dating to around 4,300 BC. Joining me now is David Brock, head of the Government Historic Estates Unit at Historic England. Very good to see you on GB News. Thank you very much for coming on, David. Are these exciting discoveries?
They are, in the sense that there's a great deal we didn't know about this site, incredible as that may seem, because no formal archaeology was done when the Great Palace was built in the 1840s and 50s, and not very much since. But we know that this area has been occupied for a very long time because it's a little gravel dome on one side of the river. The river, of course, enormously much bigger and wider then than now. And that's called Thorney Island, and on that are both the Abbey and the Palace. So that was reliable dry ground, which was bound to be occupied. So I think the discovery of the flints in that sense was...
Flints?
They were flints that are 6,000 years old, and they look like pretty skillful pieces of flint, and flint, of course, is a marvellous material if you know how to use it. As anyone who's ever watched flint knapping, for example, on TV will attest. So that demonstrates that people were moving through that area, perhaps not more than that, not perhaps then living there.
These flints would have been what? Would they have been arrows? Would they have been knives?
They look like scrapers or blades of some kind, yes.
Can we speculate about the sort of life these people had? Did you imply there that they tended to move from one place to another?
With most prehistoric stuff, you're very lucky if you find anything at all. The number of people in the country was tiny, and not many of them would have been living in just one place for any length of time. That doesn't really happen until agriculture comes in, which is probably not by that time.
Let's switch, let's switch by about 5,000 years or something like that. A hall was discovered, or rather, I think you knew that it was there, but it has been confirmed that there was a hall. Tell me about this hall. When did it date to and what was it used for?
Well, what everybody knows, I'm sure, about Westminster is that there is an enormous hall called Westminster Hall, built by William Rufus in 1099. Nobody really knows why he made it so big. And people asked him this at the time, I think. He didn't really give them a good reply. It remained almost uselessly vast. So in 1167, Henry II built a more practical hall immediately to the south of it, which came to be called the Lesser Hall, and that's the one the walling of which was found. We did know from the maps that it was there. It survived to become part of the rather haphazard medieval palace, which spread in a sort of zigzag south from the hall.
Right. Any idea what activities were carried on there? Were there councils of state? Were there banquets?
I imagine proper banquets went on in the hall if they were big enough, such as coronation feasts. Smaller banquets would have gone on in the lesser hall, I'm sure. Subsequently, it became, in the late Middle Ages, the Court of Request, which was a sort of small claims court. And we do know that the Commons met there once in the 1360s, I think. Subsequently, it goes through all sorts of changes because in 1801, the House of Lords moves in there. And after the Great Fire of 1834, in which almost all of these buildings were lost, it's fitted up as the Emergency House of Commons and is in service as such until, I think, 1846.
You mentioned the fire of 1834, so presumably not much is left of that lesser hall. What has been found?
What they've found is about a metre up of the walls, we think. What is easy to forget is that much of Westminster was at quite a low level. You can feel this when you go down to go into Westminster Hall itself, and older buildings will have been actually set lower down. So we've got about a metre. There probably also would be vaults of some kind underneath it. It's good to know that it's there because it might have all been grubbed up When Barry built the Great Palace in the 1840s, he first of all dug out the ground and cast an enormous concrete raft on which the palace sits, which is one reason why it's barely moved since. It was a very fine piece of engineering.
Concrete raft?
Concrete raft,
wow.
Which is really a sort of grid under the grid of courtyards that is the palace. And that's why it's been so stable, but it was an enormous work of engineering, which of course did take out a tremendous amount of archaeology, and it might have done the same to the lesser hall, but it seems not.
You've made me appreciate, as it were, a new Westminster Hall. Well, how is it that Westminster Hall survived?
It was on the edge of the fire, which probably ironically started under the 1834 fire, sorry, which I think started under the lesser hall, ironically. Everybody knew that this was the building they must save above all others, so I think they played the fire.
In 1834?
In 1834, and also during the war.
I was going to say, and then history repeats itself during the Second World War.
Yes.
The decision is made to allow the Commons to burn down.
Yes.
Because only part of the building can be saved, and it has to be Westminster Hall.
It has to be Westminster Hall, and again they are successful in that, and Westminster Hall is an extraordinary prodigy, as I say. We don't know why it's so big, but everybody has had to step up to the plate ever since. In the late 14th century, it's given this enormous, incredible roof, 600 tons of roof, the largest open timber roof in Europe, absolute masterpiece of its time. And ever since then, that roof was gradually subsiding until 1913, when an unsung hero, largely unsung hero, called Sir Frank Baines in the Office of Works, says, we've absolutely got to take this to bits, put it back together again, which they do during the First War, in fact.
Extraordinary. Can we expect more discoveries, do you think, as the works may one day get underway?
It's almost certain that more will be found. They're likely to have to dig more, for example, at the south end of the building, probably more at the north end of the building. Things will come out of there. There's just so much to find.
Well, please bring us regular and periodic reports.
Of course.
Thank you very much indeed. David Brock talking about what's being found under Parliament going back 6,000 years. Thanks to all my guests for joining me today. It's been 2 hours of fascinating conversation for me. I'll be back at the same time next week. Coming up next on GB News is The Weekend with Dawn Neeson. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
Michael, I love the way you turn over your shoulder and go, Dawn, like I've done something wrong. Well, I haven't yet, but I might do very soon. Great show as always, Michael. Coming up on this one, we have got Labour's first female Prime Minister, or is she? Yeah, we're talking Angela Rayner. The migration loophole the Home Office were warned about 10 years ago, and guess what they did? You got it, absolutely nothing. And the shocking football story that no fan out there will want to miss. Oh, and we're also talking about booze, because it's a Sunday, and breasts. All of that coming up after the weather. See you then.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a mixed picture out there. Unsettled in the north with rain and showers, still feeling chilly, but it is brighter in the south. So we have an area of low pressure situated to the northwest of the UK. Some strong winds as indicated by the tightening of the ice bars across Northern Ireland. We hold on to this outbreaks of rain and hill snow across Scotland, but across Northern Ireland and Northern England, the band of rain will gradually sink its way south and eastward, so coming into parts of Wales and the southwest of England as we go overnight, accompanied with some strong winds. But there's going to be a lot of cloud cover around tonight, so actually temperatures aren't going to be falling as low. There might be a touch of frost in places where you get the lengthiest clear skies, but otherwise most places staying frost-free to start Monday morning. But we'll still hold on to a rash of showers, especially across eastern parts of Scotland first thing, dry and brighter across western Scotland and more so across Northern Ireland. For the vast majority of England and Wales, it's a cloudy note. The strongest winds across Wales and the southwest of England, perhaps even seeing some coastal gales here with further showers. Now, as we head through Monday, then the focus for the showers really will be confined to eastern areas, still falling as snow over the mountains in eastern parts of Scotland, but turning drier and brighter across Northern Ireland and Wales and the southwest of England as we head into the afternoon. Feeling more pleasant in the sunshine, but still with that northerly wind, feeling chilly. Temperatures still only around 6 to 8 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, again, the focus for showers still across eastern areas, but turning drier still across the west as we have a ridge of higher pressure moving through during Tuesday to help settle things down, but then becoming milder and more unsettled through the week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy